Hi everyone, I'm Leanne and today we are talking about the books that I acquired over my birthday Christmas period. So I have some Christmas presents here, I have some gifts from myself. I also got some book tokens over the Christmas period. So I fell in love with Edinburgh at the start of December. I was there just before my birthday, so I needed to treat myself to some bits. I have a full video coming up where I show you all of the kind of bookish goodies that I got while I was there. But in terms of the actual books, there were two that I picked up. The first of those is Pink Witch, and this is a collection of poems from 12 women writers. Edinburgh just has this amazing kind of witchy vibe. There was a specific witch themed shop that I went into and I loved. I definitely want to read more poetry in 2025, and I love having a few quite dinky books like this on my TBR. And I think in terms of getting back into reading more poetry in 2025, a collection that has lots of different poets in it is a great way for me to get back into it and maybe introduce myself to some new voices that I'd not read from before. One of the many bookshops I went into on that trip was the Amnesty bookshop that does really fantastic secondhand stuff, and I must have arrived at exactly the right moment because they had just had a big donation of fairy loot books. They were all very much kind of like core fantasy that isn't necessarily exactly where my tastes lie. I did put it on my Instagram story at the time asking if anyone wanted me to pick up anything from the selection to let me know in the next 10 minutes. They were all super reasonably priced, and the only one that I did pick up was the Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This definitely felt like the most cozy fantasy one that there was in the selection of what they had. I mean, they must have had about 20, and I honestly don't even really know much about this book other than it seeming like more cozy fantasy. It's got these beautiful honey and bee sprayed edges. I think this is one that I'm going to read very soon because I'm keen to continue on my train of cozy fantasy loving. A Christmas present that I got from my boss was Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given. So I read Women Don't Owe You Pretty and I found it really impactful when I read it. I've not read Florence Given's novel that came out a couple of years ago, but I'm expecting this one to kind of build on what Florence discusses and shares in Women Don't Owe You Pretty. Sort of this encouragement to embrace and celebrate, but also just feel comfortable and unbothered about your body. I really like the illustration style that she uses as well, so I think this is one that will be a really fun, quick read for me. I'm also thrilled to now have a copy of the illustrated Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, and it's Nico Delort that does the illustrations for these. I read the Hunger Games series years and years ago. I absolutely inhaled the series, and as someone that doesn't often make the time to prioritize rereading, having an illustrated edition of something that I know I've loved would be the perfect way for me to revisit this book that I know I enjoyed. These gorgeous, high spec, large illustrated editions just feel so special. I felt like I was actually quite restrained in the Waterstone sale. I only picked up 3 books. The first of those is Chronicles of Weatherwhy, The Age of Enchantment by Anna James. So Anna James is the author of the Pages & Co. series, a really cozy middle grade series of 5 books that is packed just full of whimsical magic adventure and an absolute adoration for reading and books. When I saw she had a new series coming out, I needed to get hold of it. I was thinking about waiting and pre-ordering the paperback, but I scrapped that idea when I saw that the hardback was in the Waterstone sale because I have Pages & Co. in hardback as well, so it's great to have this to match. So in Weatherwhy, everyone is magical. Everyone has magic inside them that has come from one of the 4 seasons, but a rare few people are enchanters. They have magic in their bones and they are able to wield the power from all 4 seasons. Our main character Juniper discovers that she is one of these enchanters and is invited to study at Thistledown Academy. But because he doesn't want to be left behind, her brother ends up following her to the city and taking an apprenticeship in bookbinding. And as both of these kids start to learn more, it becomes clear that there is something dark happening as well. This sounds brilliant. I'm so excited to read it. I also picked up Heroes and Villains, Poems About Legends, and this is collected by Anna Sampson with illustrations from Chris Riddell. I mean, this is just the most gorgeous book, and as I said, want to read more poetry poetry in 2025, and I've read a couple of poetry books before that are anthologies that are accompanied by Chris Riddell's illustrations, and it's just the most wonderful reading experience. And these poems are all united in their theme of being inspired by heroes and villains, legends from around the world. This is another one where I just feel like the actual reading experience itself will just be so joyous. I also picked up Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers because basically everyone was telling me it's the most brilliant book. So I've not read Cleopatra and Frankenstein yet, but I'm gonna go straight into this without having read that one. I really enjoy books about sisters. I don't know if it's because like I don't have any myself, so I find it a really fascinating like relationship, familial dynamic. But this follows three sisters going to New York to try and prevent the sale of their childhood home. And as they come back together, it brings up a lot of feelings of grief, particularly around their fourth sister who has died. And as I said, so many people have recommended this book to me. I've seen it on so many people's like best books of 2024 list. So very excited to read this one. Another one where I was thinking of waiting for the paperback, but I've gone ahead and got the hardback, was Hey Zoe by Sarah Crossan. Sarah Crossan's one of my favourite writers. I've read so many of her books. But this, in terms of subject matter, is quite different to a lot of what she's written before. This is about a woman that discovers her husband has been keeping a sex robot. And I just find all of those kinds of themes and subject matters, I find it really fascinating. I always have. So I'm really intrigued to see what Sarah Crossan has done with that subject matter. It's not something that I necessarily like expected her to write about, so it's really thrilling that she has. The last of my book tokens I used on a cheeky last minute pre-order. I picked up The Restaurant at the Edge of the World by Oliver Gerlach and Kelsey Jo Silva. So this is a young adult graphic novel that follows our main character Soup at quite a crossroad in her life. So she wants to make her mark on the world, but equally she feels quite reluctant and hesitant to leave home. It's only when her boss snaps at her and she realizes what a tyrant that he really is that she decides to take action. But she does so in quite a risky way. She is going to have a cook-off. If she wins, she is going to take over the restaurant business and be able to protect her village. But if she loses, she's got to leave town. This is another one that I feel like is going to carry on my trend of loving cozy fantasy. And also I would like to read more graphic novels in 2025 as well. On top of that, I absolutely love books that really celebrate food and all of the kind of smells and tastes and also the comfort and joy that is associated with food. So there's lots of things in the recipe for this book that are really appealing to me. I also have a new romance book, and that is The Slowest Burn by Sarah Chamberlain. I met Sarah at a book event a few months ago and she was telling me about her book and it just sounded absolutely amazing. So I'm so glad to finally have a copy of it. It's another one that has that real love of food in it, which made me really intrigued to read it. This is about Ellie, who is a ghost writer of cookbooks, and she is partnered with Kieran to write his new cookbook. He's just won a reality cooking competition. He's got this really lucrative book deal. He's set to open his own restaurant, all before the age of 30. And immediately there's a bit of a personality clash between these two, but obviously there's also a lot of romantic tension as well. I've never really thought about what it would be like to be the ghostwriter of cookbooks. I think food is a really kind of romantic subject matter as well, and it's quite like, it can be quite sensual, so it makes it a really perfect kind of subject matter for a romance book. And then finally I have a couple of celeb memoirs as well. So I have Believe by Leanne Pinnock. I'm a massive Little Mix fan. That's really the only description I need to give this book. Huge fan of their music, of their personalities. Remember them being on the X Factor, and I think hearing more and more previous contestants from the X Factor open up about what that was like is something that I'm really interested in. And I think Leanne's experiences under that level of spotlight and scrutiny will be particularly interesting to read about. And then finally, I have Paris, the memoir by Paris Hilton. I have a particularly niche interest in blonde women from the noughties. I find Paris Hilton really quite fascinating. I think this is probably one where I will end up listening to it on audio rather than reading the actual book. But I'm really intrigued about this because I think Paris Hilton she's so iconic in pop culture, and I think people have a lot of preconceptions or misconceptions about her, and we all kind of feel like we know who she is. But like, do we really? She's a total icon, but do we really actually know that much about the real Paris? So that is it. That is my December, birthday, Christmas, post-Christmas book token haul. If you've read any of the books that I have mentioned, do leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought of them. Let me know if you picked up anything over the Christmas period that you're really excited to read. There were quite a lot of foodie books in this haul, so leave me your favorite kind of food emoji to let me know you're here if you don't have anything in particular you want to say. That's it from me. I hope you're doing well, and I'll speak to you in my next video.